Hello and welcome. In the Shotsuki Hoyo monthly memorial, we honored loved ones who passed away in that month, regardless of the year. I will be reading the names of those who have passed away in the month of November. We do this to honor their memory and allow ourselves to appreciate how much we are indebted to these deceased family members and friends for their guidance, love, and friendship throughout the years past. You are invited to burn incense at your Homo Butsudan and Gasho in memory of your deceased loved ones. Mitsuo Ishihara, Yukio Kawamoto, David T. Shiraishi, Kirk Akahoshi, Norman Satoshi Yagade, Tokuko Huffman, Kazuo Kosaka, Shigeru Oto, Ritsu Nabetta, Dennis Morinaka, Yoshiko Nakamura, Akiji Ochi, Sachie Yamamoto, Albert Ichiro Saito, Tamayo Yoshisaka, Dick Toshio Hachisu, Usako Matsui, George Terasaki, Sadako Ishizu, Asako Fujii, Kunio Kawamoto, Hiroichi Hiroshige, Max E. Barrett, Takayoshi Ohara, Margaret Fumiko Terada, Atsuye Ueno, Sachiko Santo Higashi, Katsuyo Hamaguchi, Aiko Hamatake, Giichi Omori, Richard Ejima, Kimi Ikenoye, Fujie Sakamoto, Zensuke Sueyoshi, Chio Yamashita, Kiku Sueyoshi, Umeno Itami, Toro Azuma, Shigeru Matsumoto, Isao Nishiguchi, Iwa Furuya, Sonojo Samashima, Kyoji Mayumi, Taira Osaka, Shinobu Takeshita, Stephen Torio, Lillian Segawa, Nao Taketa, Motoji Yara, Atsuno Tsuji, Asano Iguchi, Okiku Sakamoto, Hamako Nakamura, Imataro Kawamoto, Masashi Ito, Yasuo Murata, Kanajiro Kondo, Mine Sugiyama, Eijiro Inoue, Kiemon Shinden, Shika Matsumoto, Setsuko Mizoshima, Suye Kato, Chiyo Yano, Shinyemon Honda, Shintaro Morikawa, Tsugi Imaizumi. Again, you are invited to burn incense at your Homo Butsudan and Gasho in memory of deceased family and friends, whether I read their name or not. Alternatively, if you prefer not to burn incense, you may place flowers, a reminder of our impermanence and the beauty and fragility of life, in front of your home altar in your loved one's remembrance. If you don't have an Obutsudan in your home, please place the flowers in an appropriate location in your home to remember your family member or friend. On behalf of the Buddhist Temple of San Diego ministerial staff, We extend our heartfelt condolences to you and your family as you remember the passing of your loved ones. Shakyamuni Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, taught that those who see only his body do not truly see him. It is those who accept his teaching that truly see the Buddha. With true love and compassion, your loved ones have become one with all light and life, born into the Pure Land. May you, in turn, continue to be guided by the all-embracing wisdom and compassion that is Amida Buddha. Please join me in Gasho, or with palms together. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. Next, I'd like to share Dharma message with everyone. If everyone would now please join me in Gasho. The whole idea of compassion is based on a keen awareness of the interdependence of all living beings, which are all part of one another and all involved in one another. Thomas Merton, an American Trappist monk, writer. Namanda, 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 Namanda. Okay, well, as we know from our Dharma School theme this year, there's these two key concepts in Buddhism of impermanence and interdependence. And impermanence, as we've been talking about, refers to the idea that everything changes and nothing is truly just forever. And that there's nothing that will always remain exactly the same. And interdependence refers to the idea that everything is one, or all things are interconnected, or perhaps that nothing exists as a single independent entity all alone and by itself. And so together, these ideas mean that our lives are a continuous process of change, of rising and falling together, of being together, and always intertwined. And we see that the world all around us is part of an interconnected and changing process. Nothing is either constant and permanent or alone and totally separate. And so we can think of impermanence and interdependence as the two I's, I and I, or the two I's of Buddhism that help us to see the truth. So today I'd like to offer some thoughts about interdependence. And interdependence is sometimes what we call the teaching of oneness. And that means we don't exist by ourselves all alone. We're interconnected with the entire world, in fact, with the entire universe. So, some examples are that rainforests, which are thousands of miles away from here, provide us with oxygen that sustains our lives. And the bamboo that you see behind me does kind of the same thing. It helps us to breathe, even though this bamboo is growing over in Japan. And plankton does the same thing in our oceans. Now, the sun is interconnected with us, even though it's a whopping 93 million miles away. It warms the earth and allows all life to grow and thrive. It allows us to grow and live. And, sometimes we watch science fiction and things, but if the sun were to exhaust its energy and extinguish, it would go what they call supernova and explode. And all life on Earth would also extinguish because of that connection, that even though it's so far away, we're just so connected to the sun. And the planet would rapidly become the third frozen chunk of rock away from what used to be the sun. So despite this vast distance of, 93 gazillion miles, because I have a hard time understanding what even a million miles is, we're not really separate from our sun. And we're not separate from the forests or the oceans or the bamboo forests. We're not separate from the earth. We exist together all as one, and we're all interconnected and we're all interdependent. And so interdependence is really all around us. It's all part of us. But a lot of times we just don't recognize the existence of interdependence and how it occurs. You know, a flower can't exist without the sun and air and nutrients in the soil. And a dog or a cat or a mouse or a bird or a person, you know, those don't come into being without having parents along the way. So everything is part of this vast network or interconnected process. And a traditional example that's used in the Buddhist sutras or the sermons that the Buddha gave is this idea of 3 sticks or reeds that are standing upright and leaning against each other. And they support each other like a tripod, so that if one stick is taken away, the other 2 will fall to the ground. But, you know, interdependence means more than just leaning on each other. There's a Vietnamese Buddhist monk named Thich Nhat Hanh who uses the example of a wooden table to illustrate interdependence. For that table to exist, Thich Nhat Hanh says, we need wood, and we need a carpenter, and we need some time and skillfulness and many other causes and conditions. And each of these causes needs other causes and conditions so that they can in turn exist. The wood needs a forest and the sunshine and the rain and so on. And the carpenter needs parents and food for nourishment and fresh air and tools and a carpentry master or teacher and so on. And if we continue to look at this in this way, we see that nothing is left out. And everything in the universe has come together to bring us a simple wooden table. Thich Nhat Hanh says if we look deeply at the sunshine and the leaves of the trees and the clouds and the rain, we can see the table within all of them. And looking at the table, we can see within it the sunshine and the leaves of the trees and the clouds and the rain. The wooden table, can be seen in the all, the universe, and the all can be seen in the one. And Thich Nhat Hanh is saying that everything exists within all other things. But, you know, perhaps unlike Thich Nhat Hanh, most of you out there probably don't care or think a whole lot about wooden tables. So let's do an exercise about interdependence with something a lot of us might like. Who here likes to eat pizza? You can raise your hand virtually or in real life. Okay, it looks like just a few of us might actually like pizza. Okay, so let's suppose that you ordered a cheese pizza from your favorite pizza place and had it delivered to you. And you open the box with a steaming hot pizza in it, and you take out a slice. And just before you take that first delicious bite, you stop and ask yourself, how did that slice of pizza come into existence and show up at my door? So we can think about this as the pizza is made up of a crust and tomato sauce and cheese and some spices. So how did the crust become a crust? It's probably made from something like wheat flour and yeast and water, maybe olive oil and salt. Well, where did the wheat come from? Maybe the wheat was grown in Kansas or North Dakota or Oklahoma. Maybe it was grown on a huge farm, or maybe it was grown locally in California in a relatively small farm field. But it had to be planted, and it took sunlight and water to grow, and it had to be harvested and threshed, whether that's by hand or by huge machines on a big farm. And then the grain had to be moved to market for sale or to a mill for processing. So now we've involved not only the farmers, but also the truck drivers and the trucks and the roads, not to mention the people who built those roads and the people and maybe even robots who built the trucks. And so that the grain, now that it's where it needs to be processed, has to be milled into flour. So now we've involved even more people as the wheat is processed and milled and packaged. and it gets transported by another truck and driver to be sold so that the pizza place can have the flour. And all these things and people involved already, and we still don't even have crust. So the pizza maker has to combine the flour with things like water and salt and yeast and maybe some other ingredients like olive oil and spices to make it extra tasty. And each of those items come from some other place through other causes and conditions. So the salt usually comes from evaporating seawater or mining rock salt as a mineral. And there's a lot of people involved in processing that. And yeast is actually a tiny microorganism that's grown or cultivated. And of course, water, I know we all just turn on the tap and don't think about it, but water has to be collected and cleaned and processed before it comes to our tap and we can cook with it. And olives grow on trees and are harvested and then pressed into olive oil. And all of these processes take inputs from natural elements and many people too. And that's just for the crust. How about the sauce and the cheese? You know, tomatoes have to be grown and cows have to be milked. So the sauce is made out of the tomatoes and the cheese has to be made out of the milk. And those processes involve more sunshine and air and rain and farmers and cows and feed for the cows and fertilizer for the tomatoes and trucks and roads and on and on and on. So, you know, pizza doesn't just grow on trees, you know. And even if it did, which would be really cool because I would go out in my backyard and pick a fresh slice of pizza every day off the pizza tree. Well, it would still take sunshine and air and rain or water and fertilizer and lots of other things to grow those magical pizza trees. But seriously, so much has to happen. And so many people were involved with your pizza before you even get to take that one bite. So much of the world is reflected in that one slice of pizza, and that slice of pizza is finally about to connect with you. So it could be exhausting if we break down every process and examine all of the causes and conditions, all of the connections, and all of the beings that were involved in making and delivering that pizza to your door. Oh yeah, and don't forget the delivery driver too. That's somebody else who you're connected with. So that one slice of pizza is totally dependent on countless numbers of others, which makes you about to eat the pizza interdependent with countless numbers of others. And even though it was unlikely that all those people and beings and cows and tomatoes were purposefully trying to do this to benefit you, the fact remains that without their efforts, you wouldn't have that slice of pizza to eat, and you wouldn't have the food that sustains you. So each of us are dependent and connected with so many others, most of whom we'll never even get to know. We're so interdependent and so interconnected, even through a simple slice of cheese pizza. So maybe you're sitting in front of your computer right now, feeling like you're kind of alone or isolated from others. But instead of feeling disconnected, think about how interconnected you are to really everything and everybody. Think about how interdependent we all are, kind of like a giant connect the dots puzzle. At first, each numbered dot seems to be separate and insignificant when you do a connect the dots. But when you start to draw in the lines that connect all the dots together, there's this wonderful interconnected, interdependent picture that takes shape. Our picture, and that's interdependence. So let's join our palms together in Gasho. It's symbolic of our interdependence and interconnection with all beings and all things. Namo Amida Boots, Namo Amida Boots, Namandab, 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 Namandab.